Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central. And today is Wednesday, May the 9th, 2018. I'm with my friends Lisa Flamino Rush and BZ Rieger. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
We're going to talk tonight about...
Yay!
Oh, yay!
Hi.
Awesome. I wondered what I was trying to see what it was when you were walking closer to the camera earlier. Couldn't quite tell. So thank you for that. You answered my question.
Yeah, he like sneezed back there.
I'm excited actually for what we're going to talk about tonight, because it's been a big theme for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of other folks. Self-responsibility. Taking responsibility for ourselves, our choices, our lack of choicing, because not making a choice is still a choice, believe it or not. And so we're going to talk about, I'm hoping that you guys will talk about it with me, because sometimes it can be very frustrating to be taking responsibility, self-responsibility, and being around others who aren't, because it gets tied up. For me, what I've noticed anyway is when I'm around another being that, because being in a victim mode is also a form of not taking self-responsibility, and so it covers a lot of different things for me, what I noticed. So I mean, it's kind of a broad subject, I guess, but the truth of it, there's a couple of things here, issues for me in this, and that is, how does one who is taking responsibility, self-responsibility in a group or setting, couple, relationship, business partnership, friends, family, all of these things, a person's making the right, choices for themselves to take responsibility, and then they're in close proximity to those that aren't, in whatever ways, myriads of them. And then, I mean, I don't know, help me out with this one, because it can be very frustrating and sad too. I've had a lot of sadness over watching folks not wanting to take responsibility and yet crying the blues about this, that, or the other, because they're still living in this victim mentality thing and not seeing it for whatever the reason is. And I get it. Everybody's everybody's source. Nobody's missing anything. So those of us that are over here taking responsibility, doing the work, making the moves, and then you got this one over here, maybe not so much any of that. So, well, you know what I mean? Help me out. Pull me out of the trash bin over here, ladies. I'm telling you, this is a tough one for me. Because you get to a point where you're like, guys, I don't know what to say for you. For me, sometimes.
Lisa, you want to jump in there?
Anybody?
Well, sure. Because I'm surrounded by people that don't want to take responsibility. So I feel pain. And honestly, I guess what I've come to for myself is, there isn't anything I can do about that. I honestly can't do a thing about it. So in looking at the situation, what can I do anything about? I guess it's just me. You can only do something about me. Well, I guess you can only take self-responsibility. So I can only really deal with how they're making me feel and find out what it's all about within me. So I'm just constantly keeping my focus and attention right here, because that's really all I have control over. And also, the beauty of doing that for me is not only the energetic envelope that, you know, we're kind of familiar with here, but I see it also as an energetic envelope, but as a template, a way of handling the situation, or the way I'm handling the situation becomes a path for another to choose if they want to. So instead of teaching people by teaching them lessons, be responsible for yourself, I allow nature to take its course, because I know how creation works. And I can even have a little sympathy, sort of, ooh, I see where you're headed. Much love. And from the trajectory that I'm spying, I can notice whether I got a zig or zag, because I don't necessarily want to reap anything that I see coming down the pipe.
No backsplash.
So again, what's that?
No backsplash, no backwash.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, thank you. No. So then now I'm free to maneuver myself using my self-responsibility and put myself where myself feels better and more comfortable, and, you know, less in the way of, I don't know, backsplatter.
Well, and wouldn't that include then at that point, though, for that sort of thing, is either removing oneself or making sure there's boundaries and that
setting boundaries? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there seems to be a lot of this. I mean, we've done other videos about I can't wait. The Eddie, I'll never forget that. So, so there's is there, maybe I'm holding that wrong. Is there, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm holding that wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of folks still waiting around for something to happen. I can do this when that, or
if only this, then that.
Right. And so I'm wondering, doesn't some self-responsibility play into that as well? I mean, okay, so
go to the question you were going to ask. Is there, what was that question?
I'm not quite sure. It left.
Okay. Well, see if it come back, because I got the sense that there was magic in that there question you had coming up, or at least a whole cadre wanted to come and play with that question. So,
well, let's hear it, BZ.
Well,
she's not sure what it was.
So I'm still waiting for her half of it.
I gotcha.
All I know is like.
Yes, no, it was feeling big. I thought you picked up on it. I'm like, you run with it. Hurry.
Well, I had certain chapters, but you know.
Well, it just seems like there is, I mean, isn't there self-responsibility in that, in and of itself? But I said that, didn't I? Or did I not say that out loud?
No, you were saying, you're about to say, isn't there?
Well, isn't there some self-responsibility in that? I mean, and there's certainly a bit of victim mentality in that, I feel, because I can't do this, that, and the other because of that, the other, and that. But I don't know. I get, it's kind of, I know I'm a creator being, and I'm not going to let any of that stop me. I don't know. I'm sorry. Whatever was coming, I guess, left.
Okay.
Sorry to disappoint.
No, that's okay. I'll go with the other threads that were all around that came in.
Okay, please do.
First of all, the perspective of self-responsibility and oft said, 100% responsible, accountable, and liable is in large measure a linear construct and frequency vibration. Mostly because most people, when they think about being responsible, there is a flavor, a slant, an eddy, okay, lots of eddies, of punitiveness, or, you have to be responsible, you got to be grown up, you got, all those kinds of things. So the first thing that I would say is that so we'll go with that, 100% responsible, accountable, and liable, is there is great accountability, responsibility, and liability in the sense of, playing your part and understanding how you're flowing and how you're moving energy, what you're creating, all that kind of stuff. But there's great joy.
There's great joy, but there's also, for me, and maybe I'm alone in this, but there's a great sense of power.
Yeah, well, I'm getting to that. That's the other part. Okay. So there's great joy, there's great power, yeah. Because you're not, when you do it, you can't play small. Because you're connected and there's a great honoring. So, and we've kind of touched on two sides, well, before we came on camera, two sides of the coin with that. I hear from and have conversations with lots of people where it seems to be both of, on both sides of the coin. So one is, are we there yet? I wish so-and-so would hurry up, this and that and the other thing, you're not doing enough, or when are you going to do this, or me in particular, or other yous out there. And then kind of the other side, people are saying, well, I went through this and these are the things that happen, and it could be labeled as terrible, but it was actually terrific because it showed me to be in that place, to honor that, to honor me, honor thyself. And the full self of who you are. And so great joy in that, and 100% commitment to that whole process, because, even if there's perceived stuff that's hard or not all fluffy words you might use, as you move through that, it's actually far more spectacular and far more fantastical and far more fluffy than you ever could have imagined.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. That's I see that very much so in my own life, in my own trajectory, just over the last, actually year since I started this channel. Mm-hmm. With what's happened in my own life, from the outside looking in, it looks like my life has just fallen apart. And, oh, poor gal, 28 years all alone. Oh, poor thing, So sorry, so sad for her. But in truth, it's the best thing that could happen. And so, yeah, no, I get what you're saying about that but isn't that two separate things, or is that somehow,
isn't what two separate things?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess not really. They are connected.
Well, the center point, the way that I hold it from an expansive thing, is that it's your you-ness. So you are honoring, celebrating, diving into, fully embracing, fully enjoying, fully wielding your you-ness. And your you-ness is a creator being, a kick-ass creator being.
Yes, and I this is a bit of a side note. Maybe this actually needs to be a separate video altogether. But But as a side note, that, and I think that's why I jumped in and said something about power there earlier.
Okay.
Because taking that, for me personally, because that's all I can speak to, because this is my experience. But for me personally, okay, so since the word responsibility has such a, connotation to it, I'll state that I took control of me in a way that I've never done before. And in that control, there was also a bit of loosening of, so I don't want folks to say, control the iron fist, that kind of control. No, it's more of a,
That's a great whole video.
Okay. Yep.
We can put it next.
Yeah, okay. We can do that. But it starts with,
because I'm getting reams of things, and so that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please
No, that's fine. I was just thinking that when we can be response-able. So we're not being reactive. We're not feeling the push or the pull or the shove or the stomp of the false matrix if we're on the negative side of it. We're not in our joyfulness and playing. We're not missing the power that we have in that. And I think one of the reasons that this is coming up, that I've been nudged to ask if you all wanted to play with this, and then also, a number of beings in a number of different ways having conversations with me about this right now, is because it's almost like we're threading the eye of the needle right now of what's going on. So things are narrowing down, and we're just about to go in the most spectacular, orgasmically delicious way. And so another kind of visual metaphor might be, it's almost at the point where that big rush of implosion is coming in, with all of us coming in. And so it's a huge choice point. And whether you know it or not, on a linear, as Sheila would say, up front here way, you're getting signals and signs and information directly, indirectly, obliquely, in all different ways that you can hold it to listen, to notice, to feel into, and actually see it going on. And one of the reasons that the choice point is so, it's not one of the reasons. This choice point holds many facets to it that make it a particularly catalyzing choice point. Maybe that's a good way to say it.
Okay.
I can see that. I can see that because I've experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The choice, the choice to grasp that, the reins of that, for me personally, catalyzed many other things. That in and of itself was for me, the very first thing was just the willingness to look at things for myself.
Mhm.
But very quickly upon that was then as I began to start looking at things about me, I realized, oh, wait a minute, I need to take this in hand just a little bit here, and really sit with this a bit. And so that for me, that's how that came about. But you're right, it was a catalyzing thing that's just started that whole cascade.
Right.
Wow.
And it's a cascade to you know, there really aren't any words that describe it. I can throw off a bunch, and some people I know will roll their eyes or get a little irked at them, you know, like the word of bliss and this kind of stuff, because, you know, for years people have been hearing about follow your bliss, and they're like, I ain't got bliss, I got shit out here, and I don't know what you're talking about, but there's nothing blissy around here, you know. And it's that's the trouble with a lot of these words, is by design they've had, you know, negative connotations put on them. But if you go for the frequency, so, and again, the way I always do it is play with, because, you know, a long time ago, I had the exact same hackles up, teeth gnashing response to that particular word that begins with a B and has a couple of letters and ends with 2 S's. You know, it's like, huh? You know, but I, you know, came up with ways to play for it myself, and what, you know, get a sense of what other people who could feel it, what it was, and then how I play it, because it's frequency. And so when we have these conversations, the linear conversing is sometimes difficult, because we can feel the energy of the thought that comes in, or what we've been playing with individually, and then we're all playing within in coherence. And then, you know, as the bigger group is coming in and playing with coherence and so on and so forth, the linear languaging are really just placeholders. You know, it's kind of like, and it's metaphor this, and so for painting pictures that just give a tiny little quick character sketch energetically from a verbal placeholder to try to let you feel that. Because once you start to just see a few dustings of graphite on the paper, to use the, you know, the character sketch metaphor there, you can feel it. You know, you can see that little bit of charcoal sparkling, and you can start to catch it. And that's, you know, how you go. So the part of this catalyzing choice point is honoring, accepting, the way I would say, claiming, owning, as in you take it in, not ownership like you go buy something and you've got to document it. So owning that you are, I'll say it 2 ways, that you are not small, that you are magnificent, that you're not just somebody who, you know, is born and different things happen and then you die and you're worm food. That, you know, you're beyond eternal, beyond just, you know, this kind of light bubbly thing that, you know, goes into the mother's womb and a baby, you know, and then you got the quickening and then you come out and wow, and I'm having, you know, I'm a human having a spiritual experience. You know, it's way, way, way beyond that in general. Before, it was way beyond that. Now, it's a whole new game. Way beyond, you know, like infinity beyond that. And so one of the ways to play with it, however you're holding, perceiving, describing, looking at, feeling into, conversing about, so that gives you a fairly good range to play with there. In each moment that that's happening, stop and think, so that you're pulling in the linear side. And most importantly, stop and feel, and then play with both of those, so that you're kind of giving a nod to paying homage to the polarity of it, right? Of the thinking, so the linear, and then the feeling, so the more heart-centered and the quantum and that's giving you multidimensionality, because it's going to give you often different spheres. That you are, we'll start with the not, because that's a little easier for people, although it's a hard one, that you're not small. So if there's something that you want to do and you're reaching out a little, and you're I can't wait toing about it, or playing it, wouldn't it be wonderful if, that kind of thing, or I can't wait until they get off their whatever and finish this something or other that they're supposed to be doing, so that I can, so someone will come by and with a ticker tape parade and tell me, okay, you're all set, we covered it for you. So wherever you are,
wherever you are.
Yeah, come out and live now, everyone.
So wherever you are and sometimes you may be half there, or jump around. But so wherever you are in that sphere of frequency, vibration, neighborhoods, just play with, think about, feel into, and play with those, that you're not small. So whatever you were, maybe let's play with that for a minute. So one, and then both of you pick something that whatever is this, either someone has said to you or that pops into your own head, and let's play with that. So we have a more specific.
About not being small?
No, about whatever, we're in that circle, sphere of how you're holding something. So someone may have just said something to you that you remember and you want to.
I don't talk to anybody. Look, there's many. We have many. Hang on.
Or if you noticed a comment or something that comes your own way, So in other words, what part of that, sphere is it? The I'm playing and awake and expanding, or am I waiting, for someone to throw the newspaper on my front porch and say, "Hey, you've arrived."
Well, okay, so I don't really have a lot of folks that I talk to all that much, as we all know, except for Lisa, and because I talk to her all the time. But I'll keep it with me, because I'm playing and expanding. Okay.
Yeah, we're not good at this, BZ.
And we're playing and expanding, I feel.
Yes. No, we are.
And but there, I have found myself on occasion, obviously.
Okay.
I can't wait to. We know, we just had that video. And also, I have been, and I am becoming more and more vigilant about those thoughts and the speech that I use in regards to that. Some of that's habit. And for me personally, sometimes it's really hard to get used to, because there's a part of me that feels and has been feeling for quite some time that very soon I'm going to be going somewhere or doing something and not being here. And so it's been difficult at times to not do that. I can't wait to, or whatever, and yet enjoy the now moment of being in the company of, my friends, and, just being here and having those eyelash moments, which are every bit as important, if not more so. And so, yeah, that's a bit of a tightrope to walk there with that. So, I mean, I'm going to use myself in that.
Okay. So if you could pick one part of that, and in the thinking about and the feeling into, and then the playing with both of them, it's I'm not small. So if I'm not small, and you're just playing a game, so Smarmy can, Smarmy's not really even in the building with you, so that doesn't work so much with you anymore. But other Smarmies, can just settle down for a minute, because I'm not small. So what does it feel like not to be small? What does it feel like? And if you want to jump right to being big and being expensive, great, go for it. I'm not wanting to limit anybody in any way, but usually it's a little safer if you're not really accustomed to doing that I'm not small. So because you can visualize various, sizes of not
Small.
not small, so you could be, I'm small, but I'm not that small, right? And then, I'm not that small, and you keep going, whatever that is, because it changes. And so you have...
Yeah, I've never felt very small.
And if you're not small, what does that change? So for some reason, this popped into my head because with the glass. So you want a glass, and you're not tall enough to reach something.
Yeah.
And so you can play with, what is the experience that you're wanting to have in reaching the glass, in having that glass?
Okay.
How will that open something up? And all of that expansion just on the glass. Maybe you're thirsty, maybe it's part of your enjoyment at the end of the day or the beginning of the day. Maybe it's, you really enjoy the feeling that you're drinking of that particular thing, makes you, whatever it is. But it's sensory. It's has an emotional component. It has a mental, emotional, physical, energetic component to it. So just in that, you're now starting to actually build all of your muscles, and you can take it and do it in a nanosecond. But, and then you go back to remembering that, well, you can't reach the glass because you're not small. So what are the different ways that come to you that you actually will grow in your energy field? You will grow in your thinking, oh, well, there's a stool, or, simple things that, that sounds stupid kind of with this glass metaphor, except it is not. Everything in our lives, everything is exactly the same. This is just a metaphor. And when we're thinking about how we expand and how we can grasp and feel and own and claim and honor that we are magnificent, we do it most easily. Most people, most easily. Some can do it instantaneously, and that's great. But most people can most easily doing it by just little bits of metaphor that kind of get us a little further and a little further and a little more expanded and a little bit more comfortable with it, so that maybe we don't recede quite as far the next time, and we're here and we'll just come in a little, And you can do it with, I create my reality and everything comes in it, so I am the genesis of that. Or you can do it with just, a simple exercise with the glass. Wherever you're coming, and maybe it's, what I'm saying is all of these things are incredibly powerful and helpful tools, play games, techniques to get you to all of these places. Because you are on this planet at the nexus point, the pinprick where everything else floods think of it as a infinite cosmic pinprick that once that comes down, it ripples, radiates, flows, waves. Well, I wish I could describe the picture that just came in. Out to everything that exists in all things. And because it is such, okay, that's funny. Because it's such a big bang moment, it goes beyond even that, because that's what this is all about. And everything is related, and we are all connected. So, see previous videos. If you do a pan of, what's out there, that and that and that and that, no matter what country, what world, what industry, what system, what structure, what being, what class, whatever, they're all related, and they're all dots, and they're all lighting up, and they're all showing you things. So just start to notice that. And you are the nexus point of your energetic frequency that is driving all of that, connecting, expanding, and pushing out the boundaries, barriers, constraints of what was to all of it, because each one of us does that, we make that, right, pinpoint out to beyond infinity, because we're that big, that good. We're making beyond that because we're just creating it. Because we've already done this, now we're doing that and that. So in practical terms, and again, I would hold it as, if you have a little bit of a charge around self-responsibility, that it's self-honoring and self-commitment, and responsibility. So if you're a creator being, and you can create anything, worlds, quasars, right? Then it would be really helpful if you were cognizant of that and were responsible about it, instead of just willy-nilly, going like this and, oh, sorry.
Right.
Because you just winked that out, okay. So that's a good thing, because you're realizing just how beautiful your creative power is. But also so that's on the expansive token. And then on the constrictive token side of it, same thing, to honor that and be responsible for that when you are the victim, like you talked about, Sheila, or you are, waiting for the newspaper to drop on your front step and say, hey, we've arrived, we want you to come on down, that there is responsibility there as well, because there's standing room only to get on this planet at this moment, because it's at this nexus pinprick, thing I just described. And everybody has a part, everybody has a role and a mission, and multiples of those to play. And you're doing it in multiple, when you're awake, when you're asleep, all those different things. And I use this as a kind of a linear placeholder descriptor. So if you're not playing your part, yet you're kind of tapping your finger, toe, whatever, waiting for it to happen, then the other everybody's have to do more work, pull more weight, however you want to hold that metaphor.
I don't know if I'm hearing the question or if it's my question. Okay. So we'll just leave this one at that. But, because so when you just said that, when you're not doing your part, that leaves everybody else to to pull more weight.
Mm-hmm.
The question then becomes, well, how do I know what my part is? And I will say for myself that I have figured out that my part is right here. Right, just deal with this right here. That's my part. I really have come to feel that as you know, the collective, everyone does that, then those things that are out there that we're seeing, because if it all starts in here,
there's no out there.
There is no out there. Right. So you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, I started by saying that last part that this was just a linear placeholder, because before I even said it, all the questions were coming. But wait. So that's a great answer to that. There are multiple answers to that. That's a great answer, and it's.
Well, I mean, the reason I bring that up is because, just to be clear, now I do now fully get and comprehend that what we're doing here, the three of us, is part of what I signed up to do. I get that, and I'm on board with that. I've accepted that. There is a part of me, however, that feels like there's something else or more, and sometimes I admit I have been concerned. Well, am I falling down on the job? Is there something else I need to be doing? You know, because I feel like there is something else.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the same for everybody. And there's many somethings and multiple somethings. And even on a day, just take me personally for a moment, even on a day where, you know, if someone was to look at what I'm doing, you know, in the linear job and other things, and I'll say, there's got to be something else I'm supposed to be doing, or I should be doing, or would help move this forward. And I'm already doing a lot. So that's, because we're so expansive, I think that's, it's a common thread, a common refrain, although when we're in the higher vibrational neighborhood and fully residing there all the time, we still feel that, we still emote that, we still play with that, but there is no charge to it. It's just, oh, cool. Well, you know, I'm going to do this and do that and this, and because I'm multidimensional and I can do it simultaneously. It's just when we're, you know, playing in a little bit more linear way that we think, well, you know, I got to get on it, or there's got to be, you know, something more.
Well, it's really, for me, just been recently that it's not as, it doesn't feel as urgent, as though I just know that it will present when it's time, and I'll recognize it. And, you know,
one of the reasons that is you're honoring yourself now, which is one of the major things. If you're gonna linear, and that's one of the major things that you're doing, because that opens you up to all of the other things, and it opens you up to the playing, and it opens you up to building the muscles and going in that flow, creating the flow, going with the flow, co-creating the flow, playing with the flow, noticing that, you know, so it's multidimensional. So there's a lot of things at the same time. But that's how we get there. When we say, and there's a, you know, and I'm not discounting any of this, because I feel a lot of people feeling is that, you know, they come directly and I have conversations with them, and I can pick up, I notice myself, I think I said beforehand that we started camera, that a lot of others use me, some intentionally, some consciously, some not at all, but they still use me nonetheless, to work out their not knowing or not understanding or not feeling into what, you know, these things are. And so I'll just take that for a moment. For the me in that scenario, that's okay to some extent. Feel into it. Notice that sometimes it will trigger within you. Maybe there's a pocket or a new kind of question about that for your own being that you'll need to work through, flow with, whatever. That could be actually your a linear residual on that, or it just is, you can feel, because you're getting more expensive with your energy, you can feel those others, whether it's one or many, or have what the setting is, using you to do that. And just set your boundaries, right, and not get pulled down frequency wise back into that. And then for those who are on the other side of that, just to kind of finish that part out, that's where go back to where I said a few moments ago about when those questions come up, or that smallness feeling, or the frustration. So look at it for a moment, think about it, feel into it, and then play with the combination of those. Well, what if I wasn't small? So I have this frustration, and the frustration feels, and play with that, kind of see if you can get just out of the thinking and into the thinking and playing, so that and the feeling, so that it's a little less hard edged, a little less charged, and something that's a little bit more abstract, that's you're not that attachment to. And then look at it and say, well, yeah, okay, I can describe it instead of labeling it, and it's not, it's a little bit separate from me, so I don't have the attachment. The frustration isn't so intense, or the unknowing, or maybe there's fear, or maybe there's kind of got to hurry up to it, sort of thing. Right. There can be lots of ways you could characterize that. If you have a little bit of distance, so a little bit more objectivity, so you can kind of turn it around and look at all sides of it and say, well, that's interesting. And what if I wasn't small and playing with this? And someone might say, well, but I am small, or how do I know if what I would do if I wasn't small? Well, just to play with it. If someone's, a lot of times, a very common thing is someone says, well, I don't know. Well, what would you say if you did know the answer? It's a remarkably simple, soft, open-ended question. Yet if you actually feel and let the question land, it's amazing, because answers pop right into your being, even if you're trying to bat them away because you're somehow attached to not knowing the answer, right? So this is the same kind of flow trigger, is the way that I would call it, that lets you play with that. And when you do that, so back to what you were saying, Sheila, before, about taking care of right here. Well, yeah, because that changes everything, because you're singular, and the singularity, and you're one at the same time. So when you take care of what's in here, you love what's in here, you connect what's in here, you honor what's in here, you hold what's in here, you change everything. Well, since right now what we're all doing is changing everything infinitum, I'd say you're doing a pretty good job, when you're working on that.
Well, that's worthy of your time and attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's making the lash moment that I was talking with Sheila the other morning, and I was like, really that eyelash moment needs to be every moment. That was a way, it wasn't just that you were eyelashing. You weren't just applying mascara. It was the way that you were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the focus, really. How we do it.
Well, this is not, however, for me, it's not that it's been, snap of the fingers to do, partly because, of all the programming and conditioning we've all had. Of course, we have to admit that we have programming and conditioning first and look at it. So that's, that's the big thing. And then really, for me anyway, I had to admit it and then look at it and be willing to suspect that at any moment that there's more of it that's about to rear its head, because it has. And part of that conditioning and programming has been that we are small, and that we, you don't pamper yourself. You don't take care of yourself. What? You don't want to work more than 80 or 90 hours a week? What are you? So there's a lot of that has to be dealt with. However, for me, that too came under the heading of self-responsibility, because if I'm not going to do that for me, who is? Who is?
Well, if you don't value yourself, then you're not setting up an energy frequency to be valued back
by anyone or anything, by the way.
You're just, that goes to the out there. So you've then created the out there, and you're having the out there come back in here to play in your neighborhood because you keep creating it.
True.
And you're tapping your foot going, well, what do they keep doing over here? I don't want them here. Well, okay.
Well, listen, I'm even guilty of that sometimes myself. Like, what is taking so damn long? Honestly, I'm doing it less and less. But I do catch myself doing that. And as of late, what's helping me is to think of it in terms of the energetics of it. So where we're going there's a price of admission. There's a ticket to ride, if you will. You have to have the frequency. And if you don't, you're not a match and you can't get there.
Right.
So I'm trying to hold it more in terms of now asking myself, what am I holding? What am I including in my frequency that's absent at my destination? And I'm making that my focus and my determination to find out what it is and edit it out of my frequency. Because really, in reality, that is the only thing keeping me from exactly where I want to be.
Yep.
Is something in my frequency in this location is keeping me in this location. It's absent in the location I wish to be in. So I'm taking that on as a project to suss out what isn't compatible to my heart's desire.
Right.
And letting go of that within me. That's all within me. It has nothing to do with what anyone else is doing.
Right.
Because really, it has nothing to do with what anyone else is doing. Because I can get there now by embodying the frequency of there now.
Right.
So that's helping me to work with it in that way.
Yeah. And it's beautifully said, because it's proactive and it's expansive, and you're coming from the Genesis point. And it's also a lot more loving and a lot more gentle and a lot more aware of that. Because, so I'll say what you just said in a more linear way that so many people choose, albeit perhaps unconsciously, is that, you had said, well, it has nothing to do with anything out there. Well, it is in some respects. The way you said is absolutely right, because you hold it and you understand that you're the genesis of it. But if you hold
right, and that even all that out there is
you got all that stuff out there, and
my frequency.
So you had said. So what I'm saying is what Lisa just said from a linear perspective. Read this. You will lose everything. Because all of those frequencies tied up in all of those things, whether it's the marriage or the kid or the job or the house or the this or the that or the this or that, and that again, and then this again, or whatever it is, you'll lose everything. And in that losing, in that loosing, which is what's really happening, in the loosing of those things, that out there is the real line. It's the perception of the external picture that's showing that those things are vanishing, dematerializing, crumbling down. There's different ways you could characterize it.
Yes.
Because you're doing the shifting within here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you make that commitment, even without when you make that commitment from a knowing place,
Mm-hmm.
and it's unshakable, and it's so large and so palpable and so visceral and so amazingly refreshing and joyous and happy. Even if someone said, well, what is it? And you go, I don't know, but I know, right? And you make that commitment, then when you go through all those pieces, even if you don't understand that was what you were doing from a linear perspective, or that was going to be the, kind of the counterpoint reaction to what you just did or you have been doing or how you're going. So read, even while everything is actually imploding and, your family's walked away and divorce and homeless and whatever it is, still that knowing, still that all those things that I described that give you the feeling around that knowing does not disappear. So the out there, as Sheila said, looks, different. And as you play with it and move through that, and yes, it can be hard, and yes, it can be teeth gnashing, and yes, it can be upsetting, and yes, it could be, oh, get me out of this line next time I stand in and put my hand up, please, Nonetheless, you won't turn back because of that knowing. You know that not only is this the only way, not only is this the way, but this is the most amazing, fantastic, spectacular, delicious way. And bring it on every moment of every day at Mach 52 bazillion light years at a time.
Why not?
Well, I want to say too, though, that because that did happen to me with the whole walking away thing and all that, remember? And I'm all happy about it and everything, but make no mistake that in the throes of some of that, I mean, we still have choices. We still have a choice. Because I was very close to making a choice that I'm very glad I didn't make that choice, but I was very close to that choice. And so we do still have choices, mm-hmm. and sometimes we can get lost in that, or at least I did. I skated very close to the edge. I mean, I did a video about that. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all, I didn't want to sugarcoat it for anyone that hadn't seen, all or lots of at least some of the previous videos. Yes, I'm very happy now. Absolutely. I've done a lot of work over the last several months to get here, however. And there are still choices, and we can be on a path and it looks like we're going there, and then all of a sudden, maybe we've decided to think small again or something. I don't know. I don't have an answer as to exactly what took place there. I think I slipped a little and went all, oh, poor me for a minute, which, can happen.
Well, sometimes we scare ourselves by our own power, I think. Mm-hmm. Because I'm just going to remind you that at that moment, we were really talking about you ending a marriage. You were in the process of that. And then you started saying different ways it could happen. And I said, be very, very careful about what you give voice to. Because
Right.
I think
Right.
that's
Yeah.
and then it was. And that was a real slap in the face of a reality.
That's true.
I did all this. It can be a little scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that I think you might be right about that. I hadn't held it quite like that, but now sitting here thinking about it and looking back on that, maybe that did have something to do with it. I mean, that's a pretty huge realization for someone to come to in a very visceral fashion, to see a very demonstrable, okay, truth. Because I had Lisa as the witness, bearing witness to my thoughts and my feelings and my words over the course of 6, 7, 8 months time. And then to have that exact situation present itself. Okay, when you're holding this concept that you're a creator, and then all of a sudden you got this.
Yeah, it was all big talk. We were really owning it. But notice how really owning it works.
Yes.
And the description I gave, about the way I had described all those different things, I was giving a global universal description, but I was actually, without all the different, one could describe the gory details, description of my journey. And, in there you could put lots of placeholders of, different kinds of surgeries or homelessness a couple times or these different things. So lots of things. So people can say, well, but you don't understand. Well, yeah, I think I'm such a good creator being and so creative at it that you could probably point at just about anything. And I could think, yeah, I did that. Yeah, no, I did that one too. No, I did that one a couple times. There's a few, that I have, but most of them, yeah. And they're not, and I wouldn't change any of them. Even in the scariest moments, even in the, oh my goodness, you're a piece of work. What were you thinking? In moments, I wouldn't change any of them. I absolutely wouldn't, because what I thought was the shiniest prize in the box, what I thought was the creme de la creme, what I thought was the multi-million, billion dollars, the all, is not what I thought they were. And they've, those different things have come around different ways. And so that in a lot of respects, I have what I thought I wanted from a different way, but I have from a slightly different physicality way. But I have so much more because I don't have the attachment to it, because I don't have the need for it, because I could literally walk from wherever I am, grab my cat and my dog and maybe one of the computers, and I've packed. That's it. Took me, I don't know, half an hour, and, clean the place up and off you go. Because there is not that attachment. And I can plunk myself down wherever and think, okay, well, where do I want to play with now? Or now that I've been guided to move here, what's the creating? So just to give you, because they keep coming around, so and knocking on the door. So I'm going to let them in this time, a couple examples of some things. So there have been times in my life when I had a connection to someone who would be feeling that all of a sudden we'll use moving as an example. All of a sudden they're just going to move someplace. Okay. Well, what are you going to do? Or how are you going to get there? Or I don't know, I'm just going to move someplace. And the very first time from a linear perspective that I can remember encountering that, thinking I'd never encountered it before, thinking I couldn't do that, yet I'm fascinated, and I was very young, fascinated by that, you know, envious, wanted that skill, that capacity. And I was just thinking about this the other day, something came up, and realized, took myself there and back, I'd actually done those things. My metaphor was slightly different. The difference is that it's happened in different ways, is that when you're called to do that, and that's really the way I hold that, because I've had direct, linear, tangible experiences of that many, I don't know, many different times, 10s, 20 times anyways, over my lifetime so far, where I'm just called to do it. And so because that occurs, all those questions don't come up. All those questions aren't in the field. All those questions aren't in your brain nattering around. Now, occasionally you may have the holy moly moment, you know, but still the rest is there. Like when I was supposed to come out why I came out to the West Coast from the East Coast, because it was part of one of my missions to do that. It was, I got the call. I knew the call was coming. The linear hello, you know, call was coming. The cosmic call, the creator call, all those, you know, levels, layers of the call was coming. I had envisioned it various different ways. And when I got the calls, you know, different levels, we're like, oh, okay. And I had, so just on that, I had 2 dogs, not Keegan, 2 dogs and a cat, and $28, I think it was, in my pocket. And part of what I was doing from the linear level was moving out here for a team, had only met the people this way, you know, not intangible, and flew on a plane with all of my valuables. So me, my being, my 2 Labradors, and my cat Rose. And land in Seattle. It's 2:00 in the morning. I've never physically met these people, right? $28 in my pocket. And, you know, the smarmy monster comes out and goes, you did it, baby. You're screwed. What were you thinking?
I could see BZ standing at the taxi stand with 2 dogs, a cat, and $28 and smarmy.
Right.
Twirling you around. Sorry, BZ. Right. I've been there.
And so, you know, and it evolved, and I was where I was supposed to be, and those things happened, and then there was another choice point of shattering. Like, anyways, all these different things happen. And one of the things that's a commonality is that there is that calling, there is that knowing, there is that this is it. Do it now. And it can happen with some buildup, usually for me and for many people that I've, you know, we've had connections, shared the different stories, and they've all been very different with a lot of similarities, that it's fairly, very quick. And one last example I'll give is in coming to this place where I am for this position, for doing what I am doing from a linear level, but also for all the other things that, and for all the components that go with it, for all the different multidimensional layers. They actually are all very directly connected. And it wasn't on my radar to make a big move, either job-wise or location-wise or any other wises. And I was helping a friend who had come over because she was doing something big, and she asked me to help her. And I said, great. And I was doing something that had to do with the computer, and we were chatting. And she said something, and the frequency of what she said was totally unrelated. And I looked at her and I thought, wow, okay. And she stopped and thought, what was that? I said, well, that was the call. I just got another call, and the phones and the faxes and every communication device on every level just went off. And okay, so I finished up with what, I was doing with her, and she left, and I had great success with where she was going and doing. And so the next linear step of that call was to go and search on Craigslist. So I opened Craigslist because this is part of what I was told to do. And I said, hands at the keyboard. Okay, well, what am I typing? Because there's a search box right there, and fill me in, And I don't remember exactly what the phrase is, but it certainly wasn't one that I was even on my radar to put in. I typed it in, something came up, and it ended up being this thing, again, not on my radar. And so it was so perfectly, one could use the phrase ordained or set up or synchronicities, or so just from the time of speed. So in that call, in that moment.
Now, BZ, just for clarification, you're talking about a soul call, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, yeah, a multidimensional call on all different levels. Well, Source was actually calling. Said, and so two things I'll finish up on that. So one, the time between that moment with my friend, which had nothing to do, it was just the friend, right? So from that moment when the phones, metaphorically, on all different levels rang and were answered and connected, to the time of sitting where I'm sitting, which is many, many hundreds, a couple 100 miles from where I was, totally different, totally everything, was so totally life-changing, uprooting, updoing everything. 26 days, 25 days.
Wow.
Just,
The speed of heart? Were you moving at the speed of heart?
And so that's just kind of the encapsulation of it. And then what was interesting is in those 26 days, there'd be times where I would be, again, not necessarily thinking about the move or the changes or any of that kind of stuff, just noticing. I could be staring at a wall, whatever it is, nothing that would be, demonstrable things. And all of a sudden, because I'm always having conversation, with me's and selves and, however you want to describe it, my soul. And the conversation was humorous. And I remember at one point hearing something in the conversation, and I roared with laughter, and I said, well, wouldn't that be an interesting kick and twist in what were going on? And it turns out, and I won't mention here, someday I will, but it turns out that it was absolutely the kick and the twist that had come to me in that, conversation was in physical reality a kick in
the deal.
That kick in the twist. So, but it's not unique to me. It's not unique to the hundreds of other people that I personally know, and probably more than that have done the same thing. This is for everyone. And even with the hard times, the scary times, the losing things times, whatever they are, the reward, the payoff, the shift, the change, the expansion, the abilities, that however you're gonna, I'm only using, those are all linear places because they don't do them justice and they're not accurate at all, but it's linear language, so we'll go with that, is whatever in linear descriptive terms the Mount Everest of the, the galactic size, that this is huge. Totally different when you thought, whatever it was, the who the you is and whatever you thought, so that's eons wide of possibilities, but more spectacular than you thought. And as you play with that, as I say, you honor that, you own that, you have the self-responsibility of that, because you realize that I am a creator, and I am lovable, and I am loved, and I am love, and I can be love, and I just be love. I don't have to can be. I am love, and I be love. It shifts everything, and it opens everything, and it changes, this one next to you, and this one, and that one, and here, and all that. And it's what you're supposed to be doing, and what your mission is. So sometimes you can look at them and they're very simple, just taking some deep breaths and only beating yourself up 100 times a day instead of 200 times a day. And sometimes it's going on a really active mission if it's at night, or something in the daylight, or whatever it is. So it's a whole range of things. And an awful lot, I'll qualify it this way, an awful lot of beings are doing all of those things, from the little tiny, that one would describe, to the really big right now. And an awful lot of beings don't realize it, or know it, or hold it in a linear, conscious, as Sheila says, right up front here way. But you are. And the only time, and this is just me being linear, the only time that I would say that you're not doing enough, or doing what you're supposed to be doing, or, because a lot of people have that refrain that, what am I supposed to be doing? I feel guilty, or this, right? Okay. The only time that, again, this is me being very linear about this, that I would say that is in fact the case, is when you're not looking at something so to integrate it, but chasing something, spinning on something that could be a fear thing, or a not enough thing, or a not being a small thing. And that's the only time. And it's easily rectified, because even if you just stop for a moment and go, well, what if I'm not small? Wherever else you do that, then you've shifted it, because then you've integrated a little bit more. And some are ready to throw everything off now. Some are throwing it off in different parts of their life, whether they're sleeping or, different ways. So everybody will hold that in different ways. Take the step, take the noticing, take the love for yourself. And some of those will be different and harder for others. But it's all a choice, and you are at choice. And you're doing amazing. That's the other thing, make the commitment to celebrate that you're doing amazing things. You're here. You jump to the front of the line for various expansive, energetic frequency reasons, because it's standing room only, not only here, but outside. And you're doing amazing. So hold that.
I love that. I love that. I agree with everything you said. For myself, it has been getting easier to recognize some of the programming and conditioning. And I am honoring myself. And I feel more solidly in myself. I don't know that it's a direct result of that, however, but you know, there are lots of factors because there's lots of stuff going on with me personally. I mean, you know, I'm so Lisa, did you have anything you wanted to add for this one?
I think that was beautiful. Very well said.
Well, I guess then we will conclude this particular conversation. You guys have been great. I will well, there's a lot of food for thought in this one if folks will sit with it for a little bit. And I know that
several banquets with.
Yes. 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 But for me, making that commitment to myself and because you know, it's not always easy. Especially when, you know, smarmy comes to call, or which you like you said, it hasn't been a lot lately anyway, but you know, recognizing some of that programming and stuff is not easy, but taking it easy on yourself, realizing that you're, you know, for me, taking it easy on myself, realizing that, you know, hey, okay, this like you said, celebrating the fact that I'm doing great. I'm real happy with where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And wow, so thank you both very much. Mm-hmm. And I will have links to both BZ and Lisa's information in the show more section of this video. And I encourage everyone that is so inclined to comment. If you have questions or you have comments, you have tips for others, you know, how are you playing with these things? How are you taking care of yourself? That sort of thing. What do you find easiest to help you recognize programming and conditioning when it rears its head? As that's, you know, for me, anytime I get excited about something, that's the first place I go, okay, wait a minute. Let's look at this. I don't mean excited, I mean overly, you know, triggered, I guess is another good word for that.
Oh, I was going to say, is that kind of like, I'm really happy today. I don't know why.
Oh, no. No, not like that. I meant triggered, you know, like whenever I have a reaction rather than the possibility of a response, because a reaction is, and a response is, oh, wait a minute, you know? Okay. So anytime I have a reaction to something, so, you know, a lot of folks use the word trigger. That's always a signal for me, usually. Sometimes I go, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
Hold up a second.
That's when you flick off your shoulder. Yeah. And if people want to give voice to and own and claim that they're doing an amazing job in Kama Sutra, that'd be very cool. Because it's a gift for yourself and it's a gift for each one.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually will be the first one. I'm going to go and put a comment in this video.
Yay. We'll encourage ourselves to keep going.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So thank you both. And till next time.